Hey now, how is everybody doing? Welcome to Red Alert Diaries with Tanya E. Hood. I'm Tanya E. Hood, a wife, a mother, and an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, it simply means I've worn a lot of different hats in my life that have helped me develop a full range of strategies and actionable steps that I've used to help my clients make a strategic impact, both personally and professionally, to have better than what life has been giving them. Red Alert Diaries is based on the life lessons from my premier book, Red Alert. Is he the one? The pocket guide defining the love of your life. And if you read my book, you already know that I got married at 21. And after 11 years of marriage, I found myself going through a divorce, having to raise my two sons alone. To reset my life and survive my divorce, I took the time I needed to get to know me better, which opened me up to new love again. So now I'm in a new marriage to the love of my life and my best friend, which just proves there is life after divorce. On this podcast, we have conversations that's real talk, marriage, divorce, money, and legacy. I want you to join me on the journey. Call 240-532-2227. That's 240-532-2227. I want this podcast to challenge your thoughts and inspire you to grow. So together, we can operate in excellence. I just recently held a live event for the first time in several years, and it's at an organization that I have frequented often, and I'm also a member of. But what I loved about that event was that it reminded me of how important it is to share the lessons of what you go through. Now, nobody wants to go through chaos and trauma. That is the last thing on our mind. But often, it's those things in our lives that give us the best lessons. And if you take the time to glean the lessons, yes, I know it is difficult to think through what the lesson is when you're in the middle of the storm. But I want to encourage you, when the dust finally settles, pause. Do an autopsy like I did on my divorce. See, after I went through all the chaos of my divorce, there was a moment where it was just me. I'd sent the boys away to go be with my mom because I just couldn't get it together. I struggled, and the struggle is real, and it's okay. Take the time you need to grieve. Take the time you need to let those emotions wash over you. Too many times people want to circumvent that part of the process. And when you circumvent it, those emotions are just buried alive, and they will resurrect themselves at the most inopportune time. I learned that lesson the hard way when I broke down in the middle of Safeway just getting groceries because I walked down the aisle to pick up something for myself and the boys and then saw one of his favorite meals. I was no longer going to be preparing a meal for him. We were no longer in that environment. It was a quick trigger that my marriage was over and it broke me. You do not want to have those emotions resurrect themselves in the middle of Safeway with a bunch of people staring at you, not really sure how to help you. They are clueless. And it's not their responsibility. There are a few individuals who have a heart to serve, a heart to support that will come to your aid. But most of the time, you'll be broken down in a ball in the middle of the aisle by yourself. Don't let that be your story. What I did was make a decision to start discovering what went wrong. What I wrote down was a sheet of paper, just put a line down the center of it, and go year by year. It's going to take you some time, depending on how long you were married and how much stuff you really want to flesh out of each year. But I decided to just do something really quick. One of the things that my natural, logical, analytical mind does is a quick simplification of a lot of complex things. That has been a superpower that has served me well. And so I wrote down the year and one or two words of what was a major point in that year for me. That gave me a quick strategy of getting an idea of where some things were turning, a few patterns that showed up, and how I was really reacting. When I finally wrote all of those things down, the next thing I did was turn the paper over. And I wrote down in that year a few more things about what that one or two words meant. That gave me a deeper insight, and I took the deep dive. But it was a slow walk through the process. What you do not want to do is overwhelm yourself when you're trying to get it together. It may need to be a slow walk. And if it is, it's okay. Do not bother comparing your walk with someone else's. You have no idea how much they've gone through. You also don't know how much they process. There are different ways that we process conflict. Some of us think through. The analytical element of who we are takes time. And if you are like me, and your natural ability is to analyze things along the way, you can get information overload. There is something that people call analysis by paralysis. That's a real thing. And it can happen to those that are thinkers like me, that are logical like me. If you find yourself in that position, pause and know it's okay to have one or two things written and make that your goal. Because if you let that be your goal at the forefront, you won't get lost in the process while you're doing your analysis. Then you take your analysis, let's say, to level 2. When you're in level 2 of that analysis, now you expand on it a little bit further, 1 or 2 sentences. I do not want you to go through doing a whole lot at one time. It will overwhelm you. And it will put you in a process of allowing those emotions to overload you. And if you have not been a person that can process the overload of emotions, it will overwhelm you. And you will feel like you are broken. And you'll go through the chaos that I once went through because I did not understand that there was enough of the people element of me to go through the breakdown of crying. I used to think that that was a weak emotion. And if I felt it, then it made me weak also. That was a thought process that should have never been given to me, but it was. So I had to work through it. I want you to know it's okay to work through it. And it is definitely, by all means, okay not to be okay. In our society, a lot of people want us to just pick up and keep moving as we transition from one thing to the next. You may need to pause. Here's something else that happened to me during that moment. Because I took the time to think 1 or 2 things on a piece of paper, the next thing I had to do was take the moments to just rise out of bed. Because I went into overload, y'all. I did not have the wherewithal to initially write down 1 or 2 things. I did what I normally do because I'm the person that people come to solve their problems. I'm the person that people usually come to get a solution. I am a problem solver. It's what I do. And so I decided I will approach my personal problems the same way I approached everybody else's. But here's a problem with that. You are not able to be your own analysis. There's a statement that I once heard, Doctor, heal thyself. You cannot do surgery on yourself when you are in the middle of chaotic emotional breakdown. It is surgery, and you cannot do surgery on yourself. The best you can do is semi-bandage. So you'll need to have someone to give you some support along the way. Find out who that is. Look for the support that you need. I started out with that page and finally got to a place where I was able to slowly work through each year, slowly expand out, and I took the slow walk because I needed to. And when I finally identified a few things, the way that I'm naturally wired, I do come up with solutions and strategies. So there were some strategies and actionable steps that I saw along the way that I thought let me apply. And I applied it and saw what happened next. But there were also moments that I discovered that this is deeper. It was more than just my marriage that caused me the chaos. It was more than just that moment that I was experiencing. I was unaware that my divorce dredged up so much of the chaotic moments in my life that I never really buried. Those buried emotions that I told you that were driven down deep inside, those things that I internalized, they resurrected themselves, and it broke me. What I do not want to happen to you is the same thing that happened to me. So take the time you need to find out how much you can self-assess, how much you can get cleared up, because that is a good thing. But also take the time that you need to find someone to give you the help. I did go get some therapy because I did need to have it, and I found more support in coaches because a coach does something a lot different than a therapist. As a coach, which is one of the things where I usually have been told, and now I just claim, being a reset strategist, I am a strategic coach that gives you insight about actionable steps and tools that you can take to get through the process that you're working on. A therapist doesn't always give you that element. With anybody that you work with, you'll have to vet to see if what they offer fits you, because there are some things that fit different people different ways. I am a person that needs strategy. I am a person that needs action. I am a person that needs to have step-by-step elements to walk through so that I can get an end result. That is how I function. And I didn't find that in therapy because all they wanted to do was just let me talk. Talking wasn't helping me. I do enough of the talking in my head. I did enough of the talking in my own well-being. I now needed a place I could go to for strategy and insight. And since I didn't have it, I built it. I took the time that I needed to learn some things. And this past couple of weeks, I had the opportunity to share that information with some amazing people at the Blacks in Government Conference for the National Training Institute. There, I got the chance to see once again, firsthand, why I do what I do. I don't want anybody else to walk over the landmines that I have already crossed. I don't want anybody else to go through the struggles of the chaos and the trauma, because if you can get some insight about someone else that has already walked through it, you now have a clearer path that you can use as a stepping stone to get to your breakthrough. And so for today, if you don't remember anything else that I've shared, here's the one thing I want you to know. There is a way that you can get some insight from the chaos and the trauma that you have been experiencing. Take the time to do an autopsy. That's the one thing that truly gave me the help that I needed to know what strategies I needed to take next. And then don't try to be a surgeon on the deep wounds that are sitting in the recesses of your soul. Find someone to help you. Find whatever tools that you need, be it a course that someone teaches, because I learned initially some of the steps that I taught to help others get through the landmine through a course. And then I found a coach. Find what you need that benefits you best to do what you must to be whole. And if you want someone to join you on a journey, feel free to reach out to me. Go to my website, tanyaehood.com. There you can click under the Work With Me tab and see the various ways that we can be a support system to one another. And if you're on Clubhouse, feel free to join me at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the Red Alert Diaries room. There, we can continue this conversation, or we can start a new one. In the meantime, this is Tanya E. Hood, walking in my purpose, and I want you to do the same.